You are listening to The Letter from 14B, a story by Rob Peterson.
London, 1952. The war's been over 7 years, but the city still limps through its shadows. And in Bayswater, just off the High Street, behind a newsagent with a peeling sign, stands Ashbury Court. Brick black, pigeon-pecked, ghosts behind every curtain. This is where Bill Stocky has come to start over, though he doesn't quite know what that means yet.
Four flights up and no lift, of course. Damp. Paint. Bit of both. Home, sweet flaming home. Well, it's a new start, I suppose. Left the paper 6 months ago. Wrote for 'em 20 years, war correspondent, London desk, the works. Then, nothing. Funny, isn't it? You give your voice to something long enough, and when they stop printing it, it's like you forget how to speak. So here I am. Flat 14B. A friend of a friend knew the landlady. Said it was going for cheap. Cheap means the pipes scream and the wallpaper peels like a sunburn, but the neighbours don't ask questions. Which suits me fine. Right. That must be the welcoming committee.
Mr. Stocky?
That's me. And you must be...
Mrs. Peck, I run the building. You'll want to keep that window latched when the wind's up. It plays havoc with the wiring in these old flats. I brought tea. Thought you might not have unpacked the kettle yet. Strong, no sugar. Milk was fresh yesterday.
That's kind of you. Thanks.
You'll find things in a bit of a state. No one's lived here since Mr. Everleigh. He was quiet. Too quiet, maybe. Always tapping away at something. Like you, I suppose.
Really? Didn't say much?
Didn't say anything, Mr. Stocky. Not after 1941, just kept himself to himself. One day he was gone. No fuss. Tell me, Mr. Stocky, what brings you to flat 14B?
To be honest, I needed somewhere quiet, to remember how to think again.
Well then. Well, if it's quiet you're after, you have come to the right place. I will leave you to it, Mr. Stocky. Good afternoon.
Thank you, Mrs. Peck, and thanks for the tea.
Ashbury Court wears its age quietly. The walls remember more than they share. The floorboards creak not from wear, but from the weight of untold things. And flat 14B, well, some places don't forget, even when everyone else has. Mr. Bill Stocky, recently of no fixed address, is about to find something long buried, something left not in haste, but in hope. Hope that someone would one day listen.
Right then, let's get these ruddy bags over here. Oh dear, that floorboard has come loose. Let's see if I can put it back down. Wait, what is that trap beneath the floorboard? It's a letter, I think.
Bill has lifted a loose floorboard. Inside, a thick, time-worn envelope. Bill unfolds the crackling paper. A pause before he begins to read.
To whoever finds this, I pray you're kinder than the ones who wouldn't listen. My name is Private First Class Daniel H. Crane, 184th Infantry, U.S. Army. This isn't about the war, not the one you'll find in the history books. This is about an English lady I once knew. Her name was Margaret Leighton. She lived upstairs, flat 18.
What the hell is this? Some kind of joke?
She worked at our PX, helped out serving coffee and food. Then one day she just vanished, August 17th. No note, no suitcase, just gone. They told me she ran off, but I knew better. I saw the fear in her eyes the night before. She'd uncovered something she wasn't meant to know. Smuggling, officers, a name I won't write here. She said she was going to the police. She never made it.
My goodness, that poor woman.
They warned me. Forget her. Keep your head down. Go home. But how do you forget someone who never said goodbye? If you find this, please, find out what happened to Margaret. Someone needs to remember her. Someone needs to care. Flat 18, Ashbury Court. Daniel Crane.
Well, it's far too late to do anything about this now. But I have to ask Mrs. Peck in the morning about this poor girl Margaret. But I can't be too direct.
Oh, good morning, Mr. Stocky. Come in. I have just made a pot of tea. How are you this morning?
I am well. Thank you, Mrs. Peck. I found a few quirks, uneven floorboards, loose light switch, and, well, a bit of history, I think.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, I was shifting furniture around and came across an old scrap of paper. Just someone scribbling a name and an address. Looked like it dated back to the war. The name on it was Margaret Leighton. Said she lived in flat 18. That ring any bells?
That's going back a ways.
Was she a tenant?
Briefly. Just after the Yanks moved in during the early war years, she was a pretty thing.
And?
She left, that's all I know. People did that, that come and go. No goodbyes.
Still, makes you wonder. What stories this place could tell?
Sometimes it's better not to know the stories, Mr. Stocky.
Maybe. But sometimes stories want to be heard.
Bill Stocky hadn't chased a real story in over 6 years. He told himself he'd left that life behind. The crime desks, the coffee-stained notepads. But the letter in his coat pocket said otherwise. There was something about Daniel Crane's voice, scratched in fading ink, that pulled at an old thread in Bill's mind. A thread he hadn't tugged in a long time. Margaret Leighton hadn't just vanished. She'd been erased. And that wasn't the kind of story Bill Stocky could walk away from. So he started where he always had, with the names that never made the papers. Detective Sergeant Len Harper, retired, but still nursing favours owed and stories half told. The kind of man who never forgot a girl who vanished, or the men who helped it happen.
Yeah, Harper speaking.
Len, it's Bill Stocky here.
Blimey, didn't think you were still breathing. What do you want? Another corpse or a pint?
A name, actually. Margaret Leighton. Disappeared in 44. Lived at Ashbury Court. Ring a bell?
Leighton. Yeah, that name stirred dust. You sure you want to go poking there?
I've already started.
Then you'd best come see me in person and bring whiskey, the good kind.
The bus rolled through a greying London, its windows fogged with breath and rain. Bill sat halfway down, coat collar turned up, hat pulled low. He hadn't been to Deptford in years.
You bring the whiskey, Bill.
Single malt. You still take it neat?
You still ask too many questions. Come up. Take a seat. Christ, Stocky. You look like a haunted librarian.
I've been sleeping above a mystery. Suits me.
Cheers, Bill. All right, Margaret Leighton. What do you want to know?
Everything they didn't put in the reports.
She was different, that girl. Margaret Leighton. Smart as paint. Kept herself to herself mostly. But I remember the day she walked into the station. Big eyes, full of fire, clutching a manila envelope like it might explode.
What was in it?
Typed pages, letters, a ledger. She said she'd seen something. Deliveries made at odd hours, army officers showing up with briefcases, things being moved in and out of the depot under civilian lorries. She thought they were siphoning fuel, selling rations on the black market. Maybe worse.
Did anyone believe her?
I did. But she was just a bakery girl to the brass. One of those girls who got too close to the Yanks. That's what they called her. My inspector told me to let it lie.
Bill's next move was to the National Archives, the kind of place that held ghosts. Polished floors, sharp corners, climate-controlled history, bound in boxes and signed in triplicate. But Bill knew better. This was where names came to be forgotten, officially. He entered the building and headed to the reception desk.
I'm looking for military records. American liaison officer during the war. Colonel Richard Mallory, stationed in London, possibly connected to civilian logistics.
American forces? Some of those files are still classified or held under restricted terms, but I can check our Joint Operations Index. One moment, please. Colonel Mallory. Yes, we do have a service file. Stationed at Highgate Depot from 1943 to mid-1944. Transferred out abruptly in June. No reason listed, just an order number and returned to stateside command. That's odd. There's a missing page here.
What kind of missing?
Official communication removed from the file. Handwritten notation says, reassigned per directive. No signature. Very uncommon for a full-bird colonel.
Are there any complaints filed under his name?
One civilian letter, not an official complaint. It's coded under civilian concern, dismissed. Name redacted.
I bet that was Margaret.
Sorry?
Nothing. Is there a copy?
Just the log entry, not the letter itself. You could try the American Records Office in Grosvenor Square, but don't expect open arms.
Thank you, miss. You have been very helpful.
Bill decides to pursue the U.S. military connection directly. That means heading to the old American military liaison offices, once housed around Grosvenor Square, London. Luckily, Bill has his old press badge that may open a few doors. It took 3 phone calls, 2 favors, and 1 long conversation with a retired crime editor. But by Thursday morning, Bill found himself in a narrow cafe off Marylebone High Street, opposite a woman with silver hair and a sharper memory than anyone expected. Her name was Rose Templeton, 89, retired admin officer, and back in 1944, a stenographer in the American military's London HQ.
You said you were looking into Colonel Mallory. That name brings back a few shadows.
I'm actually looking for someone else. A woman named Margaret Leighton. She filed a letter, an accusation, really, about Mallory. But the letter vanished.
It didn't vanish. I typed it. She came in one afternoon, unannounced. She wasn't frightened and more determined than most. She had documents, delivery ledgers, names, dates. Said Mallory was moving military fuel and supplies into private hands, selling it on the black market. She said people were getting hurt.
And what happened to the letter?
She wrote it in our presence. They took it upstairs. After that, well, she was never seen again. We were told she'd reconsidered her statement, but I didn't believe it. We all heard the shouting, and the next morning, Mallory was gone, posted back to the States.
Did she leave anything else behind? Notes? The second letter?
Yes, a copy of her statement. She gave it to me, told me to send it to the newspapers if anything happened to her. I didn't. I was scared. But there's one more thing.
Go on. What is it?
A man came to see me, well, to interview me, really. He never gave his name, but I heard someone call him Mr. Grey. Not his real name, I'm sure. But I saw a file he left behind. Not for long, just a glimpse. It had the crest of MI5 and a code name. Operation Night Ledger.
Bill's next move was to contact Frank Harper. He was the editor of the Globe newspaper. Frank Harper had a voice like gravel and bourbon, and a face that had seen too many deadlines up close. He was American, Texan-born, ink-blooded, and somehow ended up across the Atlantic chasing stories the New York Times wouldn't touch. He met Bill in 1942, back when the Globe was still printed on broadsheet and scandal had teeth. Bill was already a name then, a bulldog crime correspondent with a nose for rot and a temper to match. They covered murders, political takedowns, and at least one royal scandal between them. But when Bill burned out and left, Frank stayed behind, rose through the ranks, and became the editor no one dared argue with after 6 p.m.
Hey, Stocky, come in. So what is it this time, Stocky? A cold case? Missing air? Secret tunnel under Buckingham Palace?
No, Frank. And it's nice to see you as well. This is about 1944. A woman vanished. Her name was Margaret Leighton. There's something called Operation Night Ledger. And Colonel Richard Mallory, American liaison.
Christ, that's not the usual wartime fluff. Where'd you dig this up?
Under a floorboard. In my flat. And now it's under my skin.
All right. You always did know when a story was rotten. I'll check the back stacks. We've got war reels and blacked-out clippings no one's looked at in 15 years. But this smells like one of those files they meant to lose.
There's one more name. Gray. Just that. Nothing else. Came up in a memo about Night Ledger. No rank, no initials. Just Gray. But I believe he is in British intelligence.
That's classic old-school intelligence right there. They used to give those guys colors and chess pieces instead of names. Gray, Black, Bishop, Ghost. All plausible deniability. What context?
Someone shut down a story in 48. About the same time Night Ledger should have hit the headlines. Memo was signed G. MI5.
So what do you want from me?
You still have your press credentials. You can ask questions I can't. You've got contacts in Fleet Street civil service, even intelligence. The quiet ones. I need to know who Gray was. Or is.
You realize what you're asking, right? If this guy's still alive, he's off the books. And if he isn't, someone else is keeping the lights off in his file.
Exactly. That's why I need you. I don't want to kick the door in. Just find a crack to look through.
Then we owe her the truth, don't we? Leave it with me, Bill. All right. There's a guy I know, Harry Delaney. Used to run security briefings at the Home Office. Smoked like a chimney. Talked like he was born with secrets in his mouth. He owes me one. I'll ask about Gray.
Thanks, Frank. This isn't just another story. That woman, Margaret Leighton, she trusted someone once. Then she vanished.
Then we owe her the truth, don't we? Leave it with me, Bill.
Bill Stocky had been in the game long enough to know a tale when he felt one. But this wasn't the casual glance of a paranoid source or a nosy rival. No, this was practiced, intentional. As he stepped out of the revolving doors of the Globe's headquarters, the pavement wet beneath his boots, they were waiting.
Mr. Harper.
That's me. Can I help you?
We're with the Ministry of Defence. Routine inquiry. We'd appreciate you coming with us for a brief conversation.
Ministry of Defence doesn't usually send 3 guys in matching coats for routine inquiries. Why don't you tell me what this is actually about?
It's not a request, Mr. Harper.
He didn't resist. Maybe he was curious. Maybe he was tired of people pretending this story didn't matter. The car moved quickly, down side streets, through private gates, until the city began to feel like something distant and unimportant. They arrived at a building with no sign, not on any map, no listed department, just a single brass plaque at the door, Ministry Records Division, which was, of course, a lie. They led him down a corridor where the walls whispered and the light bulbs hummed like insects. Finally, into a room that smelled of polished wood and old secrets. There were no windows, just a table, a chair, and a file, already waiting for him.
We've been watching you since your visit to the archives. As I told you, my name is Captain Richards, Military Police. We'd like to understand your interest in Operation Night Ledger, Mr. Stocky.
Then maybe you should ask whoever's still blacking out files from 47. I'm just trying to find out what happened to Margaret Leighton.
And you believe she was connected to Night Ledger?
I know she was. And so do you.
You've spoken with Rose Fletcher. You've involved Mr. Frank Harper. You've accessed restricted war records. That's a great deal of interest for a man who claims to be retired.
You dragged me out of the rain for a chat? Or is this the part where I get told I'm meddling?
Mr. Stocky, there are certain stories that were never meant to be told. Night Ledger was sensitive. It involved multiple branches of service, classified logistics, high-value operations.
Yes, I understand that. My sole interest is what happened to Margaret Leighton.
Off the record, Mr. Stocky. You're not wrong to be asking questions, but you're not the only one asking them. There's a serious internal investigation underway. Colonel Richard Mallory's activities, both during and after the war, have drawn attention. More than one department is involved.
So why not come out with it? Why keep it buried under official secrets and cold threats?
Bill, if I may, there's a reason I came to you now. One of Mallory's inner circle, a logistics officer named Hewitt, has been living under a new name. We've been watching him for months, and now we've got him. Or at least we will, if our sting goes to plan. And with respect, I don't want the operation conflicted by, let's say, outside influences.
Ah, you mean like some nosy reporter letting something slip?
I mean, anyone, Bill. This operation is at a sensitive point. But if we pull him in and he talks, everything changes. Operation Night Ledger, Margaret's disappearance, Mallory's personal network. It could all come out. But there's a problem.
Okay. What type of problem?
There's chatter. Someone's warned him. We think he's planning to vanish. Tonight, before we get the cuffs on.
So what do you need from me?
You still have contacts, Bill, and instincts. We need a second set of eyes at the docks. Someone not on the official roster. If things go sideways, you'll be the only one close enough to react.
I'm not as sprightly as I used to be, you know. If this turns into a foot chase through cargo containers, I might just sit it out and have a cigarette.
We're not asking you to leap over crates, Bill. We need your eyes, your judgment. You're not the muscle. You're the witness.
Witness to what, exactly?
There's a handoff planned. Nothing dramatic. A file, a briefcase. Something small, but meaningful. We believe it's insurance. Proof Hewitt's been holding on to, in case Mallory's allies ever turned on him.
And if it all goes south?
Then you do what you've always done. Watch, remember, and disappear before the noise begins.
Bill Stocky stepped out of the government building with a new purpose tucked beneath his coat and an old ache stirring in his bones. They hadn't called it a mission. Not exactly. Just a request. A favour. A nudge from the shadows. But Bill knew what it was. A second chance. Not to chase glory, but to chase truth. The destination was simple enough. The King's Wake, a pub by the docks, a place where names are rarely spoken, but everything has a price. His role? Watch, listen, report. But Bill Stocky, ex-journalist, ex-truth digger, man of ink-stained fingers and instincts sharper than he liked to admit, he knew better. This wasn't just surveillance. It was the end of a trail he'd been following since he opened that first letter in flat 14B. Mallory, Margaret, Operation Night Ledger. Names like ghosts, fading, but not gone. Tonight, it would all converge. And deep down, Bill couldn't help but wonder. Was he chasing the truth, or was it chasing him?
Good evening, sir. What can I get you?
Good evening. Half of mild, please.
He scanned the room once, not obviously, just enough to clock the faces. Dock workers, a couple of pensioners nursing pints. Then she walked in. Not young, not old, wearing a belted coat and carrying a black leather handbag that looked far too new for the kind of place this was. She didn't glance at Bill. Not at first. Just stepped up to the bar, ordered a half pint of bitter and a glass of water. Bill didn't move. He knew the game. No sudden gestures, no staring. Let her come to him, if she was coming at all. After 7 long minutes, she did.
You always sit with your back to the wall?
Old habits, my dear.
Old habits usually mean old lives. You waiting for someone?
Maybe. Depends who's asking.
If you're here for the right reasons, Mr. Stocky, you'll be at the ferry gate in 1 hour. I will be there as well.
It was just after 10 when Bill saw her again. Through the tangle of back alleys, across puddled concrete, and past shuttered windows that hadn't let in light for years. No words, only footsteps, and fog. She led him to a warehouse that looked like it hadn't been used since the Blitz. Corrugated walls, rust-stained.
So, now that the curtain's dropped, you're going to tell me who else is backstage?
Well, MI5, Metropolitan Special Branch, and a number of well-hidden local bobbies.
Quite the crowd for a quiet exchange at the docks.
Mallory was never quiet, Bill. Even dead men cast long shadows.
But what I really want to know is...
Shush now, Bill. There's a car approaching.
The exchange was smooth, too smooth. A single metal case, passed from gloved hands to leather-gloved hands. It should have ended there, 2 shadows disappearing back into the mist. But then, unmarked cars roared in from the far end of the quay. Men in dark coats spilled out like ink across the wet stone. Someone shouted, someone else ran.
So, Bill, what's the inside story about the Mallory case?
It was Hewitt. That was the crack in the wall. They caught him red-handed at the docks, handing off that briefcase to one of Mallory's old men. Inside, bank transfers, maps, a list of names that weren't meant to survive the war. He tried to bluff at first, said he was just a messenger, nothing more. But the authorities laid the gallows on the table. Treason, wartime espionage. So Hewitt talked. He gave them Mallory.
Jesus, Bill. And what about Margaret?
Gone. No body. No records. But Hewitt confirmed what Rose feared. She knew too much. She was going to testify before the Security Review Board. And then she just vanished.
So what do you want to do, Bill? Print it as is? Name names? Because once we do, there's no turning the clock back.
We print it, but not for headlines. Not for glory. We print it for her. Margaret Leighton was silenced. Not by a bullet, not by war, but by the quiet machinery of fear. I want the country to remember her. A woman who knew the cost of silence and chose to speak anyway. That's how we honor her, not with a plaque, with truth.